and take a vagabond dream.
Hi, this is Lisa. I'm Mark. We're the Vagabond Dreamers. We just finished our first week out of 3 in the Seychelles. We spent it on the big island of Mahe. What a really interesting place this is. I know you came here for the beaches, and we'll get to that in just a second, but I thought we should spend a little bit of time talking about the unique history and culture of this place. It is really remote. You have to go 2,000 miles north to come to the next country, which is Oman. Over 5,000 miles east to get to Indonesia. 1,200 miles to get to Kenya. The closest country is Madagascar, about 1,200 miles as well. It is very isolated. And as a result, it didn't play a very big part in world history at all. There is no evidence of an indigenous population here. It's very unique. And the first Europeans came here were the British in the early 1600s, and they didn't do anything with it. The French came about 150 years later and claimed it for France. And of course, if you know that time period, the next thing that comes is slavery. And that becomes really the initial history of this place. The British took it back from the French, as they often did, and they turned it into basically a penal colony for Africans who had the audacious desire to have their freedom from the British colonial system there. And it became a spot for a lot of very famous Africans to be sent here. The most famous of which is, I went to the museum and got to see her display because I taught her in my AP World History classes, Asantewaa, who was the warrior queen. She's most famous for saving Ghana at the time, the Asante people, from the British and saving what was called the golden stool that only an African could sit on. And when the British tried to sit on it, she threw it out in the forest. And she also was famous for firing up the Ghana men, the Asante men, to fight the British by telling the women, no sex until they fight. She was exiled here.
That usually works.
No ideas. She died here in 1921, and her body was returned to Ghana some years later. All right. Oh, the prison. There's a prison.
There's a prison. Well,
used to be
kind of.
Yeah, we stumbled upon this prison in the rainforest that was abandoned. The walls and things are still there. Got me thinking, what's going on here? So I'm actually working now with the prison bureau here in the Seychelles. We're collaborating on collecting pictures and stories, and I'm going to put a video together about that just because that's who I am.
And there's very little we could find about this prison.
That's the thing. There's
right,
nothing.
There's nothing.
There's one short little paragraph.
That there was a prison.
That there was a prison, right. And so there's stuff there, and we're going to dig into it. All right.
Let's get to the fun stuff. Like, why did me come here?
Oh, why'd you come here?
Beaches. So many beaches. Obviously, if you know either one of us, this has been on our bucket list for about 17 years, and we are in the bucket, and it's a big sand bucket, so super excited. The Seychelles has 60 to 70 beaches overall. They don't have an accurate number because they're everywhere. Mark and I were lucky enough to play on about 20 of those beaches, and we saw about 30 of them that we can identify. Couple of things about the beaches that we learned that we didn't know was they really have some dangerous currents on most of the beaches. And in fact, we encountered beach guards on 2 beaches who were super informative and really helpful, that really protected the people on the beaches, whether they were from the hotel that they were working for or just visitors like Mark and I on the beach. They did a great job of just alerting people, educating people, and protecting people in these currents. Many of the beaches are remote. They're isolated. There's no facilities for sure. There's no food. You have to pack your stuff in and pack your stuff out. That said, Mark and I always traveled with a first aid kit and always traveled with water and Coke. But moving on.
You want to talk about, no, let's wait before you start talking about individual beaches. A few other things. You can't really talk about visiting a place without talking about some of the miscellaneous things. The driving, insane.
Not as insane as some countries we've been at, but seriously, the roads are crazy.
Very narrow.
We're in a mountainous country.
But, I mean, the drivers are actually decent, except the bus drivers. Completely crazy. We drive on the left here, it's nuts. And then we should talk a little bit about the food. This is
What
not,
food?
Yeah, this is not a foodie island at all. We met a Brit who goes, "We came here for the food. What a mistake." He's not wrong. The best thing we found was Vita.
Oh.
Now it sounds like we're making a commercial.
No, seriously though, I have to figure out how to get these home, wherever home might be when we're done, because I'm totally addicted. And apples the best. We're rationing our apples.
We are. This island is all about tourism. There's no industry here at all. 75 to 80% of the GDP all comes from tourism. And the consequence of that is the people who live here really do go out of their way to make you happy. Bad reviews are bad for this country.
Yeah.
Oh, we did a hike. Should we talk about that?
We can talk about that. Do you want to talk about it now?
Yeah.
Well, we hiked to a beach, of course. Mahe's a bunch of hikes. They have, and going back to the tourism industry, they also have some requirements on certain hikes and certain beaches where you have to pay money to actually get on that trail or get to that particular beach. And so we saved our pennies a little bit, you know. We don't have deep, deep pockets, so we picked out one hike to get us to one beach, and that was Anse Major. So it was about a 3-mile hike each way, and it was challenging.
I don't want to talk about that hike. I don't actually want to talk about any of the hikes. You know what? I think we'll just cut to a clip, which pretty much summarizes.
I loved the hike. First of all, it was amazing, and I
So
beat my record on the way back. But
right, but let's just let this one speak for itself. Got into the beach, and Lisa wants to scout it out, find a place to set up. And Mark is going, well, I didn't actually say F that, but pretty much this is my response, which is I am going in. And we're gonna hope that the truth is it's waterproof.
the hike led us to some beaches, but I'm going to start with, we're going to talk about the beaches based on geography. So starting with the first beach we saw really when we got here was the beach where our villa was, and it was on the East Beach. East beaches, and I'm going to be general here because it isn't a flat science. East beaches are generally though flat, shallow, pretty expansive, and they're much calmer. It also seemed like the tides were a bigger deal. So when the tides went out, there was like 5 football fields of coral and sand. And then when the tides came in, it would splash up against the embankment. So the tides seemed to really play a big deal on the East beaches. The East beaches seem to be more intensively the fishing beaches. Moving from east to west, just because, the West beaches seem to be almost the opposite of the East beaches, where there were big waves, like pummeling waves, deep water. All of the beaches had some aspect of granite boulders, and the granite boulders are indigenous to the Seychelles. It's part of what makes the Seychelles so absolutely beautiful and amazing. These boulders are 750 million years old, and there's a little bit of information we can show about that, but they're fascinating, and to me it looked like we were in a zoo where they made pretend rocks because they were everywhere, and I just was fascinated.
The best thing about the West beaches, though, are the sunsets.
Sunsets, absolutely.
They were really,
absolutely.
really something.
Yeah, and we were kind of
gorgeous.
sad that we were on the east side, even though those are the sunrises, and I got to see those. Mark didn't, though, but I have pictures. So sunsets on the West Coast, big waves, deep water, they were great. And moving on to the South beaches, so we found that both the North and the South had some similarities, and it made sense geographically because the North was very small and the South is very small as far as how much land mass it covers, so there were fewer beaches both North and South. On the South beaches, though, we found that they were quite remote. At least the ones we got to were remote, which made them special. Mark and I like to kind of hunt for our beaches and find that or at least pretend that we're the only ones that are there. But in this case, that was quite true. So the North Coast beaches were absolutely beautiful, just like the South Coast. They seem to be calmer than the South Coast beaches, at least the one we went to. And obviously,
Well, it's certainly way more commercial on the.
Oh, on the North Coast, absolutely.
North Coast, right.
And I don't know why that would be.
Well, because I think because they were easy to swim at. They were calm. People were not getting pummeled by waves.
Yeah, and there was less coral.
Yes.
I think there was less coral.
Yeah.
So, South just seemed to be a lot more remote. North was beautiful. Both the North and South, though, had fewer beaches because there was fewer landmass.
All right, you've got to see a whole bunch of pictures and video from a whole bunch of beaches. We thought to end this, we would share our top 3. We didn't talk to each other first. We have no idea.
We don't talk at all on this trip until we videotape, so I don't ever know what Mark's thinking. I'm kidding. Anyway.
That's mean. All right, so what was your third favorite?
My third favorite beach was Anse Cassee. But it's like picking your favorite children, which I would never do because both my children are my favorite. But Anse Cassee was incredible. It was remote. We were the only ones there, and it took a little work to figure out how to get there.
Well, interestingly, that's my third favorite too. It was a really wonderful, wonderful experience.
He looked at my list.
I did not.
Okay.
I think I liked best about it was we had to sort of find a gate that looked like it was locked, but it wasn't, that went through somebody's enormous estate, and they can't stop you. The laws in Seychelles, you can't block access to the beach.
And all beaches are public.
All beaches are public, and so we got to just prance through this wonderful manicure. I mean, huge
it was
estate.
so
I enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
That part of it. All right, my number 2 was Anse Intendance.
Intendance.
God, I always
He's done
say
it
that.
wrong this whole trip.
Oh, the whole trip. What is it?
Intendance.
Intendance. It was the first beach we came to. Overwhelming beauty. Water was great. Only got pummeled like twice. Just staggeringly beautiful. And behind another huge estate that cost $3,400 a night to stay at a hotel. What was your number
that was
2?
incredible. Wait for that car. My number 2 was Anse Cassee, which is in the North Beach. And I think the reason it was my favorite was we found shade and sun. The water was super swimmable. It was turquoise and different shades of blue. And we saw a baby shark, and we saw a ray, and we saw jumping fish. And it, oh my gosh, that part, you can't beat seeing.
What was your number 1?
My number 1 was Intendance. And the reason it was is because it was our very first beach, and I literally had tears in my eyes. It was our first beach. It was beautiful. It was hard to swim in. Mark got pummeled. That was fun too. So maybe that was part of the reason why it was a great beach. But Intendance, truly, I teared up, felt kind of silly, but not really. This was what we came for. And I don't really, the pictures are never going to depict how absolutely beautiful these beaches and this landscape is unless you're here.
My number 1 was Anse Soleil, Soliel, because of the sunset.
And the drink.
And the drink.
I'm just kidding.
But we found this beach, a long walk, a big hill, and we just come out, looks like through someone's backyard, and then it opens up into this magnificent cove. Huge rocks all around, and 4 or 5 beach bars along the strip. And we sat there and watched the sun sink into the ocean. And we love sunsets from being up north, but man, this is a whole different level. And so for me, that was my favorite. I hope you'll come here sometime and pick out a few of your own.
Absolutely.
Sing your song, living every day, going further on. Lead your way, keep on strong, moving every day, going further on. Break out you take it and you pour it in, and you see where you're going to.
Well, this is our last day on Mahe, and we have filled our 8 days up with everything you can think of. Beaches, and I'm kidding, hikes and sunsets and food, and we've had just a fabulous time. We're headed to the smallest of the 3 islands, Digue.
Hopefully the food will be better. I'm Mark, this is Lisa, we're the Vagabond Dreamers.
And take a vagabond dream of a vagabond fool. I ain't too proud to beg, but I'm playing it cool. I can do the town, I can do the walk when I'm walking with